views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming up on this edition of Perspectives, our next guest has been a vocal advocate across New York City, taking on elected officials, even standing up to the mayor. Our guest, Tony Herbert, will join us in studio on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Darren Jaime.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective, which shines a light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
Let 'em know. And hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Darren Jaime, and of course, we thank you for watching and joining us as we enter into season number 15 of the show. We're grateful for you, the viewer, who actually tunes in and giving us a little bit of information about what you want to see here on the show. Of course, we bring you all the news, the information, and the things that come from various different perspectives. And when we talk about perspectives, it goes from politics to community events, and we get an opportunity to share your voice and also your view. Coming up, we ask that you do this. Share with us via social media. You can hit us up on BronxNet. There you can talk to us about that. Also, you can hit us up on Twitter, and you'll share your perspective. Let us know what you like to see. And guess what? Maybe in 2017, we'll put what you think about on Perspectives. Coming up front and center on this edition of the show, our guest in studio. He's a community advocate, also a business owner with a broad range of corporate business as well as political experience. And he's had a steering committee of 30 grassroots community residents that he organized in the year 2010. And he recently launched the Save Our Community initiative under the banner of his community-based organization known as the Urban Community Council. Now, the initiative was sparked in relation to gang violence that's happening across our city, particularly in Brooklyn and in urban communities throughout the country, that's taking the lives of young people. An outspoken advocate for both the people, and he's also doing some things politically. We'll find out more about that. Tony Herbert is our guest here in studio for Perspectives. And thank you once again, Tony, for coming and sharing with us.
Cool. Hey, I'm excited, and congratulations on 15 years. I mean, that's a lot of years in television time.
Yeah, it is a lot of years. And so, you know, when you can go to work every day and still be able to show up 15 years later and still be in the same spot, the same place.
And still breathing.
And still breathing. That's the main thing. It's important. So you're a Brooklyn native.
Brooklyn native, born and raised for the most part, but, you know, I'm all things New York, you know,
Right.
for the most part, so.
And when you look at our city, obviously a lot of challenges, but I know one of the things that really you hone in on is really trying to deal with this whole violence component.
Yeah. Well, you know, I come from the community, you know, for the most part. You know, wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, so I understand the dynamics of all the traps that are set up in the community for us as young people. And I still call myself young, so. But that being the case, and having worked for a number of elected officials myself, I worked in the city council, worked in the state senate, worked for a congressman, I sort of kind of got the idea of how this bureaucracy works, and it holds us back from having access to the resources that will allow our communities to move forward. So that's why I started my own organization, because I didn't want to take orders from anybody else anymore. Right. They weren't doing what was necessary to move our communities forward.
And what do you view as having the necessary resources to move our community forward?
Well, jobs is most important, first and foremost. Jobs, recreational facilities where our kids, our young people can get out and vent these frustrations that they have within them. I mean, there's a lot of challenges. So if we don't give them what they need, you know, to be productive, to be, you know, productive citizens, then guess what? We're going to get the negative narrative.
Mm-hmm. And we talk a lot about, in our community, violence, shootings, and also, you know, whether it's black law, black
mm-hmm.
crime, or whether it's police-involved shootings,
mm-hmm.
there's a lot that goes on. And so let's talk about, unpack a couple of things. Number one, police-community relations. From your perspective, Brooklyn, citywide,
mm-hmm.
How are we faring with that? I mean, we know that there's been a lot of tension.
Well, there's still some work to do, but when incidences of violence take place in other cities, naturally it all falls back on us and old wounds get opened up. So now we have to start again. If we take 2 steps forward, we get pushed back about 3. So I would honestly say that there are some good relationships. I think that the present commissioner is making good strides, for the efforts that he's trying to apply. But at the same time, too, there's a lot of grassroots organizations that are also opening up those doors. My organization, for one, Advocates Without Borders, we're working with the Sergeants Benevolent Association to, and these are the supervisors of these police officers. So what better way to get into the mindset of the officers than to have their supervisors go out there and push and say, hey, look, we need some positive dialogue here. So they're opening up that door. So we're doing a lot of stuff. We're traveling around to the school systems, talking to young people and what have you about violence and what the diatribes of what's happening in prison, and kind of letting them have a one-on-one with these supervisors as well to talk about what the issues are with their police so that they can take that information back and do what's necessary to have more positive dialogues.
What's that conversation been like?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, the young people are very engaging. They ask questions, and actually, when they're really interested, when we're finished doing what we're doing and we finish our Q&A, and they come up and they stand there and want to talk to these officers at the end of the program. So we're making good strides, and the principals are really appreciative of what we're doing because we're helping to change the mindset of these young people looking at jail as an alternative.
And when you talk about what is the difference maker, because to get police and community in the room, sometimes we know the police are sometimes a little bit leery of that, and also the community on the other hand also somewhat leery about police officers as well. What's been the difference maker in kind of like bridging the gap there?
Well, one, it has to be some level of openness on what the discussion is going to be. Oftentimes people, they have these meetings and then whoever's coordinating or organizing these structures allow for that negative to get in there. And we have to wipe that out at the door. In order for us to have any positive dialogue, we have to set the tone right from the set. And those that are in the room need to understand that we're here for dialogue, not for negative engagement. We need to talk to one another. And if we don't allow that to happen, then we're walking out of here with nothing. And that's what we do. We make sure that the sign at the door says, be ready for positive engagement. We don't want nothing negative.
So we hear the word cuckoo dialogue, right? So what kind of dialogue? Walk us in, if you can take us in there.
Well, we talk about everything. First and foremost, we walk them through the process of what the police department is all about, what policing is all about. And then we talk about community and now keep in mind, we have an obligation as community to do the right thing.
Right.
And what have you. We can't go in and create a scenario and say, okay, and be aggressive or demanding of. We have to be respectful of one another, and that's how we have to open up first. We have to show that there's going to be respect in our communication. Now, if you have an issue with regards to you might have gotten stopped by a police officer or something, talk about it. But let's talk about what created that engagement and what should have taken place. The police will give their perspective, community will have their perspective, and then we get to that common ground to figure out how we can work this out so it doesn't happen again.
And the takeaway after everybody walks away?
It opens up the room for more dialogue, and it at least gives a better, some more clarity to that interaction. So when you get stopped on the street, you know what you shouldn't be doing, or whatever the case may be. And at the same time, even if you feel that you're being stopped, unceremonially, if you want to say, oh, you stopped me for what reason, that immediate agitation creates for a negative interaction. So what you want to do is, officer, okay, what's happening, what's going on? And I know people are saying we've had that happen. And then folks have actually wind up shot, for the most part, because of false moves or whatever the case may be. You might get stopped by a racist cop. I'm not saying that they don't exist. But what we're doing now is weeding that out so that we can have better relations to move our communities forward.
So when we look at a situation like Charleston, South Carolina, and you see the shooting death of Walter Scott, and we see that there's a mistrial. First of all, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You got a mistrial in that case. Now, with all due respect, I think most of the jurors in the room said that they were leaning one way, and we pretty much assumed which way they were leaning. You had one person who said, listen, I just cannot convict this officer, leading to a mistrial. Your thoughts just on that alone?
Well, I'm only getting it based on what I see on social media.
Right.
I'm totally dismayed at the idea that our laws are not working for us. These are the laws that we helped to put in the Constitution. So now it looks as though we have to get back to the table to refine these laws. How can somebody be a threat if they're running away from you, 8 feet away from you, and you say a threat and you shoot him in his back? Come on, what kind of laws is that? So there's some issues there, and that has to be dealt with, and I'm hoping that they're able to bring this back around and have another trial.
So when you have this, we know in our community, when you get a verdict like that, there's heightened tensions. I get calls all the time. Like, look, after something like this happens, we want to make sure that people are standing by so that way people can have a voice, vent, because we know in our community, there's a ripple effect that occurs. Once you see that screen and you see a verdict that comes back contrary or no indictment or anything of that nature, there is an automatic reaction.
Yeah, but that automatic reaction normally is negative.
Right.
And then we go out and we destroy our own communities. What we need to do is make it a positive by saying, okay, if this is what's going to happen, now we've got to be proactive. We've got to get out and vote. We've got to get out and take charge of our communities. We're electing people and what have you that go along to get along just to put money in their pockets to feed their families and what have you that have nothing to do with the people they want to serve. Or even self-serve individuals like developers, people with special interests. That's where people are actually paying homage to that we've elected to represent us. And we've got to stop that. That's how we stop this madness, by stepping up and taking control and taking the power back for our community.
Coming right back, we'll have more conversation with Tony Herbert when we continue. Our topic of conversation, we'll talk about our vision for New York City and what Tony sees happening.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family?
This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry.
Go along, son!
it's always worth it.
Whoa!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
I'm only 17, but I know about investing. Believe in something, buy shares in it, watch it grow. So, what if you could invest in the future? The future of kids, like a stock. Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. I could be one of the first college graduates from my family, the first philanthropist from my neighborhood. And if I'm the first, then maybe there's a second and a third. Believe in us, invest in us, watch us grow. My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
Continue our conversation here on Perspectives. Our guest in studio, Tony Herbert, as he's talking a little bit about his vision for New York City, one that's had some political experience, great political experience, community experience, and joining us here to talk a little bit about his future and what you see. And so you see yourself being involved even more politically in the future.
Well, yeah, I mean, first and foremost, there's a lot of variables that we need to bring into play to move our community forward. One, we need more small business ownership. That has always been the backbone of any government, in our country for the most part, and actually in our communities. So, I stand today, I sit on a number of boards, but I'm also the founder of the New York State Minority Restaurant and Nightlife Association. So I'm working very much diligently to help small businesses to start their lounge, their bar, their restaurants, and which will employ those individuals in our community who don't have all the skill sets necessary, from an educational standpoint, but can be hired to do these kind of jobs. Couple that with the fact I'm also the chair of the African American International Chamber of Commerce. So my whole ideal of how we move our communities forward, not just from a black perspective, but from an overall community perspective, is bringing everybody together. We need to network with our Hispanic brothers and sisters. We need to network with our Caucasian brothers and sisters because they all have access to resources. And we need to pool those resources in order to make our communities move forward.
So what are some of the common threads that we see? Because, when we look at the city, a lot of things happen across all 5 of the boroughs. Yeah. And so what are some of the common threads that you're seeing walking across the city for things that we're really dealing with?
Well, we're probably the most diverse state in the country, next to California, and possibly Florida. But with that being said, with all these different ethnicities and dialects, for the most part, everybody's doing things differently, but we all have the same problems: affordable housing, having access to the proper resources that, for our educational system. So we all have commonality in that. The question of the matter is, how do we get us all to the table so that we can actually work from that perspective and not treat it as though we're all separate from each other? And that's what's been happening. And I got to go in there because you said at the top of the hour, we talked about how I go after elected officials. I do. I do it because I understand the kind of divisiveness that they use to separate our communities in order to get their votes, so that they position themselves and what have you when there's a challenger per se who might have support somewhere else. So what they do is they create these animosities amongst each other, and we have people fighting each other over stupidity because of these elected officials, and that's where we got to stop.
I really want to go here, but
Let's
I
go
look,
for it.
you want to go for it? Okay, so when we talk about the mayor, obviously a lot of people feel like he could possibly be a one-term mayor. Your thoughts on the mayor and your thoughts on the job that he's doing thus far?
Well, one, I share in the thought process of a lot of folks saying that he should be a one-term mayor. In all reality, you can't talk about wanting to better our communities in the tale of two cities, and you still live in those two different cities. We have people that are still hungry out here. We were just driving down the street the other day. I think we were in Queens, and there was a line of people standing there with their shopping carts outside of a church waiting to get food. So when you see stuff like that and you hear this mayor talking about the progression where? The progression where, on Wall Street? Or Madison Avenue, or over by Gracie Mansion? Probably. But when you walk into the Bronx, you walk into Bed-Stuy or Brownsville or something like that, you don't see no progression. What you see is a bunch of people still suffering. So where has that resonated, the work that he has done or have brought to bear in our communities, particularly those of color, that we've been able to move our communities forward? I don't see it. So when you talk about you want to bring everybody together and you're bettering police relationships and you're doing this for us and you're doing that, and we don't see the residual effect of it, you become non-compute in our community. So we can't afford to put this mayor back in. We need somebody that's going to be that much more progressive and real about what they're doing.
How do you speak to the issue of, I'm born and raised in Harlem, so I feel a certain type of way about Harlem. I love to see the progression, but I also see the gentrification. I look across New York City, and I see gentrification. We here in the Bronx, we happen to get people who actually cannot afford to live in New York City anymore.
Can't even live in my borough anymore, Brooklyn.
Right, and you look over there by the Barclays, and you can find out people who've actually been forced out and moved out. The gentrification in New York City, how do you address it? How do you deal with it?
Well, first and foremost, I was born and raised in that area where the Barclays is. That's Prospect Heights Park Slope corridor. And I'm probably the poster child for gentrification and what have you. We were moved out of our apartment we lived in for almost 30 some odd years because of that, for the most part, and forced to live homelessly for about 8.5 months in an abandoned building. So when I talk about what I'm doing and where I come from, I mean it from the aspect of actually living that experience, having to go outside my building, to go to the fire hydrant to get water to bathe with, to wash with, to flush the toilet and all that stuff. That's what we had to do.
How?
Because
Why?
of gentrification. And I'll tell you why. Because there's greedy developers that come in our community and our elected officials sign off on the opportunities for them to buy these properties. Airbnb is a problem. Couple that with the whole 421A program that I'm still learning about with regards to the tax breaks they're giving these developers that are hurting us in our communities. Those are the things that's moving us out. So what we're saying is that we need to restrict that in gentrifying areas. Let's stop Airbnb opportunities. Let's stop the 421A accessibility in our communities in the areas that are being gentrified, and maybe give people an opportunity to get an affordable apartment.
What do you hear from the people, particularly in Brooklyn, about this? Because a lot of people are happy. Listen, I go to Barclays. I've been there a couple times. I enjoy what I see. However, I also understand it comes at a cost. We here in the Bronx have Yankee Stadium. Now, it has not been at the cost of gentrification, but there is improvement, but sometimes that improvement can be at others' detriment.
Well, there's a lot of headaches, and we anticipated that, and let me be correct about it. I, for one, was one that supported the Barclays coming. I'm a sports fan and what have you, but when I look at the reality of people having to have been moved out because of eminent domain, issues or whatever the case may be, although some of them made off, they got paid. It still speaks to wrong, to the negative narrative, because our streets are more clustered now. Congestion is at an all-time high. The traffic patterns that they've actually illustrated in our communities just makes it that much more difficult. Where I used to be able to drive into my neighborhood where my house is, now I got to go all the way around the daggone borough to get back into my own community because of the way that they structured everything. So a lot of people are not happy about how things are set up. There's some serious concerns. And then to turn around and pay $2,000 or $2,300 for a studio apartment in Brooklyn is a problem.
Right. Major. So you're running for public advocate.
Running for New York City Public Advocate. I liken it to the fact that it's the transition from me being a community advocate. I've actually taken everything that I've learned working for a congressman, Congressman Towns. I worked in the city council for Priscilla Wooten, these both being retired. I also worked in the state senate as a statewide rep on the whole reapportionment task force. And having learned the experience of interacting with people, working and talking with our clergy people, walking and talking with people in our community who are homeless and what have you, our homelessness is at an all-time high. I believe if just past Monday, we're talking about over 60,000 people living in shelters, 20 some odd thousand of them being kids. So again, the tale of two cities. There is two cities, and this mayor has not put us in a position to get to become one yet, and he has to go.
And some people say, well, with all this great new development and all these buildings, you have buildings that are built and unoccupied. You go down to Harlem, you can find a lot of unoccupied places right now. You've got
people
these great
can't
big
afford to
buildings.
live there.
Right. People can't afford to live there. But you also have some people who say, listen, you can put people in these housing places. I mean, there's definitely room for nobody to be on the street.
I anticipate another housing boondoggle. They're building up all these luxury apartments or whatever the case may be. To give you an example, there's the Avalon down on Myrtle Avenue in Brooklyn. And they came in with all this great vision that people are going to buy these apartments, $3,000, $4,000. They had to turn around and rent them and what have you. So, and here it is, you have all this other development going on up to the 30, 40 floors. Who is going to occupy this stuff? We can't bring enough people in from Ohio to fill that up because they can't afford to pay it. If they can't live in Ohio, what makes you think they can live here in New York?
Right.
But the millennials that they're trying to cater to, that the mayor and all these people are trying to bring in, that's who they think is going to get into these apartments. And watch, there'll be another crash.
More with Tony Herbert in a minute. You're watching Perspectives with Darren Jaime. Stay tuned. We'll be right back right after this.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent.
We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
You think getting dumped by text is harsh? Try getting dumped by a tennis ball. My ex-owner drove me out to the woods, yelled fetch, and by the time I brought the ball back, he was gone. Yeah, I was pissed. But the folks at the shelter helped me let go of my anger. I learned coping skills, like taking it to the hole. Boom! Now I'm ready to fetch again. But how about I throw and you run and get it?
Back on Perspectives, our guest, Tony Herbert, in studio, and we are joined by him as he's been sharing a little bit. A candidate for a public advocate, he said that. And so where does your campaign go, and what do you want people to know about you?
Well, the campaign right now is really going according to plan. I have a great strategist who actually just helped get a judge elected against the grain, against the machine. You know, and the machine being the politicals who always want to select who they want to win and not allow people to elect. So we're excited about that. I'm officially endorsed by the SBA, the Sergeants Benevolent Association, which helps us to start that conversation. I'm also supported by the Corrections Benevolent Association, and I'm supported by my fraternity. You know, my Masonic brothers and sisters are behind me 1,000%. With that, that's enough for me to fuel the engine that I need to go forward and actually get my message out. And clearly, to know about me is about, look, I'm not a politician. That's not what I claim. I'm an advocate. I'm a resident. I'm a New Yorker.
That can get you elected these days.
And Trump said it, right?
Right. That's exactly what I meant, right.
Trump did it, you know, and people want to hear. People don't want to be, you know, BS'd anymore. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
They don't want to, you know, somebody to come in and pull the wool over their eyes and play games, and the next thing you know, you don't see them for the next couple of years until it's time for them to run for re-election. And I don't want to be that person. The public advocate's office is disconnected from our community. And what have you. You can't be in the ivory tower and not come out and be with the people. And I understand that there's a whole dynamic of people that we need to appeal to. But at the end of the day, you still need to be on the street in the grassroots. You still need to be able to go into the Bronx, the South Bronx. You still need to be able to walk up in our housing developments. The public advocate to date has yet to refuse. She puts out a whole big sheet of the worst landlords in the city. And on this list, it talks about all these people that don't do what they're supposed to do, not doing repairs and having people live in squalor positions. But she's yet to put the New York City Housing Authority on that list. That's politics to me. So you have to be able to identify, if you're going to say what it is, call it for what it is all the way around.
So what qualifies the New York City Housing Authority from your perspective to be on that list?
Oh, look at the conditions people are living in. I mean, we've been all throughout this borough, Mitchell houses. I just came out of Mitchell houses. Had to go and get several apartments redone because people are living in squalor. We had a young man who's about to have a baby and has another young baby in his apartment. Walls are peeling. You can definitely feel that there's some lead involvement there. There's black mold, which will make the kids sick, the whole family. And then talk about he had a rat stuck in the wall, trying to get back in the hole that came out of, and it died. and whatnot. So to have that kind of stuff taking place, and you talk about you're the New York City Housing Authority and you want to do right by our people, then step up and do your job. The mayor has to be held accountable. Where's all the money, the TANF money that's supposed to go into these TA presidents to give them access to resources, to better their communities, to give their tenants more opportunities of recreational facilities, and all that stuff is out the window under this mayor because nobody's holding them to task. And the public advocate is not saying anything. She's very quiet on the homelessness. If you look at what's happening with regards to the number of people in our shelters, why is she not saying anything? We have not heard her say a thing. But we also found out, and what have you, and I'll say it here, that we found out that the persons that she has as a chief of staff is one of the lobbyists who's actually getting the contracts to do homeless shelters in the hotels in our city. So that's what I'm talking about. We got to get away from that. We've got to get people who are about the people, not about lining their pockets or structuring themselves to be set up to be the next mayor or the next elected official based on position that they hold right now.
So what do you want people in closing to know about you as you begin this campaign and this campaign is going on? What do you want people to know about Tony Herbert?
Tony Herbert is passionate about what he's doing. I'm directly aiming my target at those individuals who are not doing right by our communities. And I mean across the city. They're not helping us to facilitate better relationships, with every different community. We need to be one community, one family. That's the mantra of this whole campaign, that we are here to put the power back in the hands of the people. Our community boards don't have it. They're taking that away from them and they're just running in there and doing development and telling you, oh, you don't matter, we're going to do it anyway. That's what the mayor did in East New York. And we're trying to stop that. And that's what I stand for, and that's what I believe that needs to be taking place, putting the power back in the hands of the people.
So if people want more information about you, what do they do?
HerbertNYC2017.com, or you can hashtag HerbertNYC Instagram 2017, or Instagram, all of that. I get caught up.
Instagram,
Facebook,
right.
all of that. We're on all of that. HerbertNYC 2017, or Herbert for Public Advocate.
And just in case you didn't know, yes, at the bottom of the screen, you've had it throughout the course of the show. Please tap into him.
Thank you.
Check out
Thank
Tony
you,
Herbert.
thank you.
Now you got to promise, come back.
I would love to come back, even if I don't have any problems. I'd like to come back and talk some good stuff.
Hey, that's what's up. Tony Herbert.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Our guest
man.
in the studio
Thank you.
here. Another edition of Perspectives goes into the can. And of course, continue to watch as Tony Herbert launches his campaign for public advocate in the year 2017. One thing is for sure, New York City does have its share of problems. Now, if you're having problems across the city and you have some problems that you want to talk about, please be sure to hit me up on social media, Facebook, BronxNet Perspectives, open, or you can hit me up on my personal page, Darren C. Jaime, and let's see if we get some of these questions and these problems solved and or answered. For another edition of Perspectives, we tell you, stay safe, share your perspective with somebody else. It just might make a difference, I should say, in someone else's life. Take care, God bless, and have a happy holiday.
What's your perspective? Let 'em know.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The whole